It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Joining us now is the great Bill O'Reilly. Of course, Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly every night here on WABC 9 to 10 p.m. And also, Bill, before we bring in, congrats, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Confronting the Presidents.
Well, I appreciate that, Rita. Thank you very much. It's the 19th time. It must give the Times great joy to see my name up there at the top of the list. What do you think?
I'm sure they're having a heart attack, but the numbers spoke for themselves. They couldn't do anything. Bravo to you, my friend. That's awesome. Let's get first to the VP debate. We've been talking about it. It's going to be different, a little bit of the format than the presidential. What can we expect? It's going to be, I think, a high stakes one tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's a little bit more important than usual. Because there's so much fluidity in the polling that even one or two swing points matters. So I had Vance on my show, as you know, on Common Sense on WABC. He answered the questions pretty directly. Walz got a lot of deficit, and it really depends if Vance can pin him down on what he thinks about open borders, what he thinks about inflation, rising so quickly under the Biden administration. Because I don't think the moderators will do that. They'll ask more general questions. So it's going to be up to Vance to try to put him on the defensive. I expect Walz to attack Vance on the migrant pets thing, on the cat lady thing. I think we'll see those recycled tomorrow night too.
Yeah, and the threats to democracy and a variety. Who do you think, who's your bet on, and how do you think this is going to be different than the presidential in terms of style?
A little bit more bitter. I can't bet on anybody because I don't know Walz. I haven't seen him enough to know if he thinks quickly on his feet. I don't think either of those guys are going to persuade anybody. They're basically speaking to the choir guys. But it depends on how they go about confronting each other. That's what people are going to be looking at rather than advancing policy.
Yeah, Peter Navarro's in studio here, Pete.
Hey, Bill. Hey, how much will communist China factor in? Walz has a long resume sucking up to the Chinese, making money from them. J.D. Vance, when he was Ohio, was a victim of communist Chinese aggression. Is that an issue to you, Bill?
I don't think it is. You'd have to have a pretty good dossier of what Walz specifically did in China because his posture is, hey, it was just an exchange program. I was just bringing education to Minnesota and some investment from China. I don't think the American people, I think they're really pretty much locked in now on economics. If I were Vance, I'd go there. That's where I would put my emphasis on.
If I may, Walz made a ton of money in China. They showered him with money.
You'd have to have that there. You made this amount of money.
Yeah.
How did you do it? And I expect he would deny that. But if Vance has got some ops that are saying that the guy made money that's not defined, then certainly you should throw that out.
He didn't shut down his business, Bill, until 6 months into his first term as a congressman. So anyway, it's there, but let's see what happens, his boss says.
By the way, there's a lot of material, too, to go after. Also, the weapons of war comment, too, the border comment. He sure doesn't seem – it seems like very much night and day in policies, but I agree with Bill that it's going to be Vance's job to correct and to state the record. Bill, you also –
once again, if Vance keeps it simple, like, okay, how would you stop the massive intrusion on the border, Governor? That's it. Keep it tight. Your running mate has failed to say, and which is absolutely true, how she bring down inflation. How would you do it? 10-second questions, pop, pop, pop. And you get a chance to do that because they have 2-minute rebuttals to everything. Each candidate has a chance to pose some questions. In that it's a debate is a little bit different than the presidential debate.
Yeah. And Bill, before we let you go, you also want to talk about what's going on in New York with Eric Adams.
Yeah, I think that Adams should hang tough. I wouldn't resign if I were him.
I agree with you on that, Bill. Totally.
The due process thing, and he's got a right to present his case. New York Times wants him out because they want Williams in, because Williams is more radical left than Adams. But I heard from very reliable sources that no matter what happens, Andrew Cuomo is in. He's going to run for mayor of New York City.
Wow. So what do you think is defining it for him? And by the way, if it turns out, it's probably going to be a crowded field, I would imagine, don't you think, Bill?
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. Cuomo's got a lot of money and he's got the name. In a Democratic primary, he would win. And I do 5 minutes on this at the top of my show at 9:00 tonight, backing up my opinion with what the sources, who I can't obviously say who they are, but it makes perfect sense. And the headline is that Cuomo would rather run for governor because Hochul is so weak, but Letitia James already has that locked down. She will be the next governor of New York.
Letitia James?
You bet.
What, you mean running against Hochul?
Yep, she's going to challenge Hochul in primary.
Wow, so it'll be Letitia James, Bill is saying, against Hochul, and Cuomo running against Adams. Wow, We'll talk about it. But what did you make of the charges against Adams when they came down, Bill? Because it was like Damian Williams, the U.S. attorney, spent like a few minutes on the straw donors, which is a serious offense, the foreign money and all that. But then he spent all this time talking about the bump ups, and the graph was about, getting bumped up from coach to first class. And, to me, it was like all over the place. It looked so thin on that stuff. I mean, people go, so what? He got a bump up on that part.
No, it was the quo. It wasn't the quid. So when I was at Chaminade High School, I had to take Latin. It's paying off for me now. It wasn't what he got bumped up to. It was what he did for the bump.
But he didn't do anything for 5 years. On a quid pro quo, you have to have intent. If they waited 5 years, they had no idea he was going to be mayor. They had no idea they were going to need a break from the building department. I think it would be hard to prove on intent, Bill. And without intent,
you're right.
And the Supreme Court McDonald case, they threw it out because of that.
That's true, but in the Justice Department's complaint, it's very specific that Adams ordered the building that Turks built to be opened, and there were violations.
That was 5 years after the supposed bribes were made. So there was no intent originally because nobody would have known that event was going to occur.
Yes, but in a court of law, if it can be proven by testimony from the fire officials, the New York City fire officials, that, they leaned on me. I had to do it.
That's just making a bribe.
He's in trouble.
It's called past consideration. The doctrine of law is called past consideration, and that doesn't count. It doesn't count in a civil case, and I respectfully submit it doesn't count in a criminal case.
That's from the judge of the Supreme Court.
Judge Weinberg.
He's smarter than I am. But
I don't know about that, but I think I'm right on this one.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that the Justice Department is hinging its case on Adams' insiders testifying against him that this was all you do this because we did that. That's what they got.
Your dog agrees, by the way.
And every time I say the word Justice Department, the dog barks.
I can understand that. When you're dealing with the Justice Department these days, I think everybody is barking.
Yes.
Well, Bill O'Reilly, thank you very, very much. Congrats again on the big bestseller. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoy Confronting the President. It's a good book, and we're very pleased that it opened at number 1.
Good luck on that, Bill.
It is awesome. Well deserved, my friend. Thank you so much, Bill.